Okay, guys, I'm so excited to be doing this today because if you are a business that wants to learn how to reduce productivity loss when your workers get injured, then this is a talk that you need to listen to because we have another solution for you. And going down that whole workers' comp path is a nightmare. And so we have Christina, and she owns a tree service business. And so we're going to kind of be diving into some of the problems that we have, but as well as like some of the solutions and how she's used our office for that kind of intermediate kind of stop to really solve like her workers' injuries that they were having to really get them back working as quickly as possible, which is honestly what everyone wants. I mean, the worker wants that. And so does the employer, they want that. So yeah, tell us a little bit about your business first.
Sure. Well, absolutely. I mean, first of all, it's a very physical job, right? They're climbing trees, and I mean, they're basically doing strength training workout all day long, every day. So it's obviously taking a toll on their body. I mean, they're basically, athletes, right? So the way I look at it is let's be preventative even, try to, understand your body, stretch and do different things like that to help even prepare for the workday. And so from that standpoint, what we do is it's physical. So we're going to need physical therapy, like whether it's for recovery or injury or, whatever, because it's all, what we do. So.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about like your experience, like, cause I know you had made a comment like, I have workers that are getting injured, but they really don't want to use workers' comp and they don't want to go to get help. And I can go into all the reasons why, but share that part of it first.
Yeah. So again, whether it's just overuse or strain, they push themselves a little too hard, had something really technical or whatever, just being able to understand, like, you didn't hurt yourself. Like, here's some exercises to help you kind of stretch it out, kind of get your body back. And then also, we have had some injuries, you get kind of knocked around in the tree, or branch comes down and whacks you, or you just exert yourself too much, whatever. And just being able to come in and, be assessed and understand what exactly the underlying problem is based on how your body works, helps us move forward with helping them, and getting them back to 100%, and, giving them the best chance to do that. I mean, there's a lot of other options that, just have a lot of bureaucracy and things like that, don't get you well. They get you CYA,
Yeah.
and
So was there like a little bit of a fear of them even wanting to go and use workers' comp, like if they had some injuries, or was that more of like, oh, that was my fear because I know what they're going to go through?
right, yes, yeah,
Or
I have
both?
definitely, yeah, for me, I've absolutely I've had workman's comp claims in the past, and obviously there's a cost to all of that, and that, you got to take that as a factor. However, my primary goal is always to, take care of the employee so they get back to 100%. And actually, my experiences with workman's comp actually went to the contrary of that. Just the process of intake, the people that they had to go to, how much time it took to get a specialist, et cetera, actually made their recovery
Just
longer
slower.
and harder,
Yeah.
on them. So versus, going with you, we understood what the problem was. We targeted, we had, physical therapy that we could do along with whatever the doctors were doing. And it was a collaboration right away.
Yeah.
Versus having to wait 2-3 months before you could get into the doctor that was approved by the network, and all of this other thing, only to find out that wasn't really what the problem was anyway, and then start over. So my experience with workman comp definitely influenced finding a different solution. And again, your number one priority is always getting back to 100%. And it doesn't matter the cost. It doesn't matter the other stuff. It's just, how do I do that? And once I know what that is, I can figure out what that looks like. But yeah, workman's comp was always
I mean, it's crazy because it's a waiting game.
Yeah.
So not only do you have to fill out all the paperwork, which is a nightmare, then you have to go to a doctor, which is like, are they even good? Like you don't even have a choice.
Yeah.
So then you go to that doctor, again, potentially waiting a month or 2 months. And at this point you're like, oh my God, they could have been back working at 100% by this point.
Yeah.
And most of the time, all they do is just give you pills, like literally like, here's some medications. Let's see if this works. The next step usually is here's a brace. The brace might actually help you. And then the next step is maybe physical therapy. But by the time you get to that step, then now they're like off of work because now they're on a work restriction. And now you're having to pay someone to like be off of work and someone else when it might have been like back pain, something that is like totally solvable. And you literally can get back pretty quickly, especially when it just happens. So like anytime anything just starts to happen or there's some like aches and pains, you can get into a place like us and we can go in and assess and go, listen, these are the things they need to avoid. And these are the things they're okay doing. And these are the things we're giving them so that they can get back. And then we're like progressing them at, towards getting back to 100%, which literally will not take 2 months.
No.
By the time you wait for a doctor. So like, it's so crazy. Now you got to have workers' comp insurance. This is how I use regular insurance. It's like, you use it for that major thing that happens. Like you need it. Like if there's a surgery that needs to happen, then absolutely you're going to have to go through workers' comp. It's going to be a pain, but it's going to benefit both parties. But most of the time it's not that way.
No. And in fact, I mean, the motivation, it feels like, is just to either find a way where it was their fault and they don't have to pay for it anyway.
Yes.
Or how am I protecting myself from litigation or whatever? And, I don't know, I'm just a little more, idealist, I guess, on it, where I really do want people to be taken care of and do the right thing for their health. Not just, I mean, I'm running a business. I've got to, look at my bottom dollar too. But at the same point in time, honestly, this route is actually cheaper than going through, the whole workman's comp situation. Yeah. So, that, I mean, I've even dealt with a broken bone for very minimal cost, compared to what I would have had to pay via workman's comp.
Yeah. And we had, one of your employees who we looked at and said, let's just go and send him to the doctor and just make sure, because it didn't really make sense. And it ended up being a stress fracture.
Right. Yeah.
But even then that still was, he was back and had an understanding of what he could do and what he couldn't do, and was back so much quicker than if you would have had to actually make a claim for something like that.
Yeah. And even out of pocket for all the testing, the physical therapy that we did, which was like weekly, for a period there, was very affordable.
Yeah.
So, I think that's the misnomer in this whole thing, is that people just think, oh, well, it's insurance, it's free, and no, it is not. And in the absolute contrary, it's costing you more to go that route than it is to actually just take care of the problem.
Yeah, because you're going to get a multiple doctors and you're going to get multiple testing, and all that adds up in costs versus getting to someone to go, okay, we can figure this out. This is what we think it is, or let's go. And I think you do need a little further testing, which this doesn't happen. It's very rare that we need further testing. But when there's something that doesn't make sense, you need further testing. But we can kind of figure that out and kind of be that place for people, and you're going to just get answers so much quicker. So I think you've answered some of the questions on like how this has really affected your business. So obviously it's been a positive thing. You've saved money by not using insurance. And honestly, if you use your workers' comp insurance, then your claims then your insurance, everything goes up when you use it. So, and most people have deductibles anyway. So like, why not like get people to get your employees to someone that you know that will care and that will really look at it and will solve the problem.
Yeah. Well, and to me, obviously there's the financial component, which even makes more sense than going through the insurance, but just getting them healthy is the priority for me. And having to wait for these appointments and that like just delays your recovery.
Totally.
And even for myself, I in high school and college was an athlete, and you have things you have to deal with in when you're pushing your body to those limits, and that's what these guys are doing every day. So to be able to have someone that can look at them and understand like what's going on in their body, that's causing these problems, not just the superficial, oh, you knocked something, so that must be it. Let's just focus on that. It's
a
so
Band-Aid
more,
and let it just rest. I'm like, no, there's things you can do.
Right. Yeah. And well, all the buzzwords, everyone wants to be holistic and blah, blah, blah. But, this really is, you're really looking at the whole person and understanding how the bodies work, the bones, the tendons, the, all of it. And, and you're able to like take control of the problem as I think that's part of the biggest problem with some of this stuff is, especially these guys, they're young, they're invincible, they feel like, and then they get injured and their head's all messed up, like, oh God, I'm going to die or whatever, and it's like, just gives them, the peace of mind, help them through the problem psychologically as well as physically, because they really understand what the problem is. And they're not just going to the doctor. A lot of people are scared to go to the doctor and scared to really find out what the problem is. And, I think this is a great approach to having kind of that, that psychological healing as well as the physical, because they feel like they're taken care of. They're not just shuffled from one place to another and not really understand or know what's going on. And for me as an employer, I mean, I'm not their mother, I'm not their wife or whatever, so I have absolutely no legal interest in their health, right? I can advise them and I can direct them, but it's really up to them to make the decisions. And everyone on my team that has gone through your services has had nothing but a positive experience and a positive outcome because of it. So to me, that's the win.
Well, I think you touched on a good point too, because I feel like when you go through workers' comp, you lose your control. You lose the control of how to take care of your employees. And where this way you actually can control it, because you know that they're going to be able to sit down with someone and they're going to explain everything and they're going to get all their questions answered. And that psychologically is huge, because they don't feel like they're like, okay, so what's wrong with me? Right. I'm not sure that you're giving me some pills, but like, am I going to get better? Like, what's and then psychologically that's damaging, and that's what our healthcare system does, as well as workers' comp. And when you can really sit down and get all their questions answered and go, listen, you're going to be fine. Like, we're going to get you through this. This is not a big deal. We're going to guide you step by step. Like, that is huge from them, from a mental perspective, especially when they're young and they've never, I've been there. I thought I was invincible. And then something happens. You're like, oh my God, am I going to die? Like, is this going to be the end of everything? Exactly. I mean, when you have your first injury, you're like, I think I've died. Like, I'm not going to be able to do anything and live the rest of my life. And like, it's not true. But when you can or
you just can't live it like you were. So, oh my God, am I going to lose my job? I mean, like the stress over the whole thing, that inhibits your healing as well. So, it does. Having that's important. It's not just a nice to have, so.
Yeah. Anything else that you would add? Like, I think you've kind of shared a little bit about your experience this route, because it's definitely, yeah, it seems like you might be spending more up front, but you really are not spending when you look at the
So,
whole big scheme of things with the way our office operates.
yep.
And just knowing that they can come in and get their questions answered,
Mhm.
and feeling confident, like, how was the experience in general from sending your employees to our office?
Well, I mean, awesome. Obviously there's different people in the mix. I mean, for me, it was great to have one place to go, no matter what the problem really was, and honestly, I tried that with like the urgent care,
Ooh,
because,
doesn't
as
work.
part of workman's comp, you can sign up with the urgent care that's in network, and they're supposed to be kind of your primary go-to. They'll even do physicals and things like that for you, but they're just terrible. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not because it's their fault, it's just not their focus, right?
Yeah.
So I really, having found this as an option, was just from that standpoint, being able to have that one place to kind of check and do just physicals, or do, just here's some stretches, here's some things based on your body, here's an evaluation, this is what
Yeah.
you should do to prepare for your work day, not even having an injury. So from that side of things, for me, was really great, just easy. And then from the standpoint of the employee, just like you said, I mean, having that control and understanding of what was happening, they all just were like, oh my God, they're awesome. I mean, the feedback I got from my employees was great. Just had a wonderful experience, and really felt like they understood what was happening to them. And even when they went to other places, because, obviously some of these injuries that we've had, we do have to go to the doctor. So it's
Yeah.
not like we get out of that. It's
Yeah.
just, I'm paying for it directly. So from that standpoint, they had a great experience. It was easy to get in, easy to get appointments. You're with the same person, so you're not shuffled around to different people. So from that standpoint, even though you guys are a small group and can share the information, having one person that's working on one person, and having that continuous care for them is really important too, I think, for the outcome we're looking for.
Well, and I always tell people too, when you have these injuries, having a 5-minute, 10-minute conversation with a doctor is not going to be able to figure things out. So, and that's the unfortunate piece. And when you go to urgent cares, I mean, they literally, most of them are even timed. They're timed on
Right.
like, you have to get them in and you have to get them out. And so like to go and sit down and have an understanding of like, okay, tell me what's going on. What do we need to get you back to doing? We like asking all these questions, like just understanding that piece of it takes more than
Right.
5 minutes. So
Right.
getting an understanding of like, okay, let's go and figure this out. And what are the next steps? I mean, you can't do it in a 5-minute, 10-minute
Um,
conversation.
well,
That's a
and you have,
problem.
yeah, and to further that, you guys, when, with our arrangement, have a relationship with my team.
Yep.
So this isn't the first time you're seeing them. This isn't
Yep.
the first time, like, so you do have some background on, where to move from here
Yep.
and what happened. And even if you do have a relationship with one of these clinics, you're not always going to have the same doctors. I mean, those doctors and nurses turn over all the time.
All the time.
And they rotate or whatever they do, but they're not there. And so even if you've been in, you're looking at a chart, you're not looking at somebody that you've talked to before, or or whatever. And I think, the way I look at it is, I do look at it like they're my dependents, they're my family, right? I want to take care of them and make sure they're getting the best care. And I mean, you wouldn't take your kid, to a clinic, if you take them to their primary care doctor. But even in that situation, the doctors are more looking, their focus is something different, and they have the physical therapy aspect of it is really what's key here. Because, when we're talking about injuries like this, you need to have understanding of how the body works and what's influencing what. And a lot of the, regular primary care doctors don't have that understanding. they're focused on different things.
Yeah.
So.
And just to even have another caveat here a little bit too, is that like not all physical therapy are the same as well.
No.
So like you can go to places and it's going to be very cookie cutter and they're going to be seeing multiple people at the same time. They're not going to really be able to spend the time with you. And that's not how our office is operated at all,
Right.
which means that you can get better care for your money. Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even I can absolutely attest to that. I mean, you know, a lot of places I've myself personally have had things in the past where, you know, surgeries and things like that, where I've had to go for physical therapy and they give you the list of stretches or exercises. And, you know, that's what we do. You know, they don't understand you. They don't, you know, and again, it's time, right? You know, to your point of they're on a time clock and they really just can't, it's not their fault. It's just the way that they
system.
provide the service, right?
It's a system.
And having somebody that, like in your case, where you're evaluating the person, you're understanding what their situation is, and again, having the same person throughout the care, you're just in a better situation. And to your point, it's the same money. I mean, you're going to spend the same money anyway, so you might as well get the better service.
Actually, probably more.
Oh, yeah. Well, and
because you're like not going to get the result and you're going to keep on going and then you're going to try to look for someone else. And then I mean, most of the time when people come to our office, they've probably been to 5 to 7 different healthcare providers before actually coming into our office. It's very common. Some have seen more. So you end up spending a whole lot more money and time and frustration. And honestly, people have lost hope all the time, like, because it's like, I'm going to have to live with this for the rest of my life. And like, how's it, you know, am I going to be able to work or do anything outside of work, you know, whatever the case may be, but that's what happens.
Right. For sure. I mean, and I think there's so many advantages to understanding like what your activity level is. I mean, obviously being a tree business, you know, we're at that upper limit of activity, but I mean, even somebody that works in retail, like that stands around all the time. I mean, understanding, you know, different things you can do to alleviate whatever back
while you're standing
or whatever, because you're standing around all day, you know, I mean, those kinds of things are really important, and it helps your employees. I mean, you know, I know my guys were, you know, whenever they've been in, have always been, you know, hey, they're excited about it. They're excited to come back. They feel good about what they've done. So, I mean, that positive attitude that results from the experience is good for everybody. You know, it's good for them. They feel confident when they come back to work, you know, versus tentative, you know, like they're not really sure. I mean, obviously there's always going to be some of that, but at least they feel like confident in their limits. And, you know, and that kind of stuff. So you get really that positive attitude as well.
Which is great coming into work. You know, and being like, wow, I've had a great experience. They're taking care of me, those kind of things. So it makes a big difference.
You know, workman's comp, you know, when you're sitting there, you're getting paid, you might be reduced. Well, it is reduced rate what they get paid. But then they're also going through the pain and suffering of these different doctor's appointments and different things like that. And it's really frustrating. So they're really negative. And then even sometimes they're like, you know, because of that, this job isn't worth it. So they ride out the workman's comp as long as they can. And I've actually been in situations where workman's comp is trying to get them to go back to work and they won't. And then you've got to go through this whole other thing to like prove that they can go back to work, you know, and, it's just a whole lot of bureaucracy that's really kind of unnecessary, and it's a process that kind of feeds itself, you know. So
they say too that the workers that stay off of work longer tend to not come back. They have research on that. So like like the whole process of workers' comp is so antiquated because it's not really meant to. I mean, like I get why they're doing things, but it's not really helping the workers and the employees.
No, it's really just a check in the box to protect yourself and them. And them, because they won't pay for stuff that if it's not the worker, if the worker had some sort of violation or safety issue or something, or didn't follow policy, they might not even
Pay
allow
for
them
it.
on the claim. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's just so many things there, that you just, again, it just becomes that, just
You
cover your
have it
butt.
to protect yourself for those
Yeah.
major things that happen, but you don't want to use it if you
No,
don't have
well,
to.
as an employer,
Yeah.
certainly not, because your rates are just going to go up if you do.
Yeah.
And even if they tell you, oh, to go, and it's just it's a cost, and it's not benefiting you as the
Yeah.
employer. So
Well, thank you so much. This was so great because I know there's so many other businesses out there that go through the same thing and that don't even realize that there's places like our place
yeah,
that can actually help. So I'm really excited to get this out to other businesses because everyone struggles with it. Everyone
yeah,
struggles with it.
yeah. Well, happy to share my experience. I mean, I really hope people understand that there are other options out there, and you know, get a little creative and save a little money
Yep.
and get everybody healthy.
Yep.
So,
That's what you got to do as a business owner.
yep, for sure, for sure.